There is a family in Macao, China, who was killed because of gambling debts. It hurts that their corpses were made into pork buns and fed to customers. Who could have killed them, and how this family's fate led to tragedy. Before we start the story, if you are new to this channel, hit subscribe button, and don't forget to like this video, so that you are always updated on life amazing stories. This story is about two people, and it is Zheng Lin who is the victim, and Huang Zhiheng who is the criminal. Let's start with Zheng Lin. 1955 in Macao, China, Zheng Lin was a hardworking and patient man. At a young age, he built a small business, and this is the food cart. He sells dim sums, soap noodles and pork buns. Because these are the ones that the Chinese usually sell on the streets of Macau. Because of his ability to hold and turn money around, he was able to grow it. His dream was to have a restaurant. 5 years later, he built his dream restaurant and he called it Immortal Restaurant. Here he also got married, and this became with him in running their business. Case they have a vice, which cannot be removed from their system, and this is gambling. Case this gambling will be the motto of their lives. The next one we will recognize is the criminal Huang Zhiheng. Huang Zhiheng was born in mainland China. Here he lived long before he went to Hong Kong in 1970. He also loves gambling. He used different names when he was in Hong Kong, just like Chen Liang or Chen Liang. Because of his gambling nature, he plays and bets big with different people. But because he is good at gambling, so most of the games he plays he always loses it. A friend of his had a large debt to him, but when he charged it, he could not pay it. So, because he was annoyed, he killed it. When after he killed the one who owed him, he immediately left Hong Kong and go to Guangzhou, China. Here, he lived for several years and he worked as a factory worker. In this house, where he was renting, his landlord's daughter became his girlfriend. But because her parents were opposed to their relationship, so the two decided to escape and go to Macao, China, so that they could start as a couple. To avoid the police, what he did was he burned his fingertip, so that his fingerprint could not be traced. When they were in Macau, he also worked as a factory worker. And at night he gambled with his other playmates. It was here that he met Zheng Lin and his family. During these times Zheng Lin continued to grow his restaurant. He also had 6 children, some of whom were still in elementary school and some of whom were really young. But even when they are children, they are already helping out in their restaurants. They also built 2 apartments just across the street. Then they built 3 rooms at the top of their restaurant. Here, they live with the children. Zheng Lin and Huang Zhiheng met because they had gambling friends. In other words, they are a gambling group. They gamble at Zheng Lin's restaurant when it closes in the afternoon. In 1984, Zheng Lin and Huang Zhiheng had a big bet against each other. But because Huang was good at gambling, he lost to Zheng Lin several times. Zheng Lin's debt to Huang reached a staggering 180,000 yuan. This money is so much big at that time in 1984. Zheng Lin did not immediately pay his debt. But they had an agreement that he would pay Huang for a year. But if it doesn't pay him, he will take over his restaurant. So, Huang was assured that Zheng Lin would pay him for a year. The case became a problem. Even though Zheng Lin owed Huang, they continued to gamble. Until Zheng Lin's debt to Huang increased, amounting to 600,000 yuan. On the night of August 4, 1985, it was here that Huang began charging Zheng Lin. Because he was also in a hurry at that time. But Zheng Lin was stubborn and said he didn't have that much money, which was 600,000 yuan. So, Huang is very angry, because why is he always gambling when he doesn't have a down payment? He said that Zheng Lin had committed fraud, so Huang begged to be paid only 30,000 yuan. But Zheng Lin still refused, so Huang offered again, saying, at least 20,000 yuan and he would stop. Case in point, Zheng Lin still doesn't want to pay, so Huang said, didn't we talk last year when you can't pay your debt? This restaurant is mine. It was here that Zheng Lin's head heated up, and he said, we don't have a contract in that agreement. Huang replied, of course it's just a verbal agreement, because I trust you, that you will handle our conversations. But Zheng Lin was still stubborn, and they started shouting. So here Huang's eyesight went dark, and he broke a beer bottle and turned it into a weapon. Zheng Lin's wife and children went downstairs to see what was happening. Here they see that the broken bottle is pointed at Zheng Lin. When Huang saw Zheng Lin's youngest daughter, he picked it up and aimed the broken bottle at her neck. It was here that Zheng Lin and his family cried and begged not to hurt their youngest daughter. Huang ordered Zheng Lin's wife to bind the whole family. Out of fear, he bound his wife and children. But their eldest daughter removed the handcuffs, cried out and shouting for help. Here, that Huang stabbed the eldest daughter in the neck. Zheng Lin and his children surprised. They are already crying, so, to calm them down, he killed all the family, he chopping them like pigs. Then he chopped its body parts, put their hands and feet in a plastic bag. Meanwhile, he put their bodies in the freezer. He knew that Zheng Lin had a sister who was a woman, who always helped out at the restaurant. So, what Huang did, was take it home. And said, something bad happened to Zheng Lin. It went with Huang, because he trusted it. When they were inside the restaurant, she was surprised that there was a lot of blood on the floor. When he turned to Huang to ask a question, he suddenly cut her and killed. Within 8 hours, he was able to put its bodies in various plastics. Then he went to the sea, to throw away his hands and feet. Then he returned to the restaurant to put up a sign, which was closed for 3 days. Then he went straight to Zheng Lin's apartment, and slept there. The next day, a delivery truck arrived at Zheng Lin's restaurant. It has been delivering meat products to the restaurant for many years. He was surprised, because it was only the first time the restaurant had posted a note that it would close in 3 days. Due to the time he took to deliver them, it didn't close for that long. So, he went to Zheng Lin's apartment, and there, he talked to Huang. Huang told that Zheng Lin's family is on vacation in mainland China for 3 days. The delivery did nothing, and just left. 3 days later, Huang opened the restaurant. Like Zheng Lin, Huang also knows how to cook noodles, pork buns and dim sums. Customers wonder why Huang opened the restaurant. But because they knew that Huang and Zheng Lin were friends, they did not doubt that it of what something bad happened to Zheng Lin's family. All the customers knew was that the restaurant owed them 4 debts. Another customer ordered pork buns and noodles. The noodles were complete, so he made it right away. Case, the pork buns are lacking in ingredients, because not yet delivered, the meat restaurant delivers. So, the meat he cooked was the bodies of the victims in the freezer. He cooked it like pork and put it in pork buns. Then he mixed more spices, and the customers enjoyed the pork buns he made. On August 8, 1985, a swimmer saw on the beach with broken arms and legs. They thought at first that he was a victim of sharks. But when the police investigated, they saw that the cuts on them were even, obviously using a cutlery. If the shark did that, the cut must look ruined because of the shark's bite, so they know it's murder. What the police did, they check all over the town, the recorded of missing persons, the past days. A few days later, they even saw body parts on the beach. Here they learned that they were different people. Body parts were also found at the dump site. When the police raided where it came from, they found out from the garbage collectors that it came from 8 Immortal restaurants owned by Zheng Lin. A few months later, the police came to the conclusion that the family had not returned to the restaurant for a long time. Here they investigated Huang, who was the new manager of the restaurant. They found out that he was the one charging the rent for the family's apartment. Then they also found out that the financial documents of Zheng Lin's family were in Huang's possession. When Huang found out that he was being investigated, he attempted to flee Macau and go to mainland China. But he was arrested on September 28, 1986. Almost a year after he committed the crime. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. But on December 4, 1986, he committed suicide in prison by slashing his wrist. He left a suicide note, he said here, so he committed suicide because he was already struggling with his asthma and not because he confessed to the crime. The moral lesson here is not to indulge in gambling. And if you have a debt, pay it well. Don't be angry when you are charged. But of course, never kill, no matter what happens. Have you ever had to charge to anyone, then the one you are charging is still angry? Just comment down below, and let's talk again in the next video that we will upload.